I used to think bedtime was just a routine, something we all had to do, a simple part of life like eating or brushing your teeth. Every night it was the same: wash my face, change into pajamas, climb into bed and turn off the lights. Nothing special, nothing to be afraid of. If anything, bedtime was boring, a mindless transition from one day to the next. But that was before the emergency alert started. It began last week, just a little after 9:50 p.m. I was lounging in bed, lazily scrolling through my tablet, half watching some video I wasn't even paying attention to. The night felt normal, quiet, the kind of stillness that settles after a long day. But then, out of nowhere, every single screen in my room flickered at once. My tablet, my phone, even the small digital clock on my nightstand. The glow of their displays pulsed strangely, like they were struggling to stay on. A faint crackling sound filled the air, like the buzz of static on an old TV. Then the emergency broadcast cut through the silence. The voice was robotic, unnatural, crackling with distortion. "This is an emergency alert. At exactly 10 p.m., all electronic devices will emit the bedtime signal. You must be in bed with your eyes closed before the signal begins. Those who remain awake and aware will be taken." The message repeated twice, each word pressing into my brain like a weight. Then, without warning, the screen on my tablet went black. My phone, too. Even the digital clock stopped glowing, leaving the room eerily dim. A moment later, everything powered back on, as if nothing had happened. No error messages, no explanation, just back to normal. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of elaborate prank, maybe a weird internet hoax or some kind of system glitch, but something about it didn't feel right. The voice had been too deliberate, too cold. Then I heard my mom's voice from down the hall. "Alex, time for bed." She sounded urgent, too urgent. This wasn't her usual half-distracted reminder before she went to bed herself. There was an edge to her voice, a sharpness that made my stomach twist. I swung my legs off the bed and peeked out of my room. Down the hallway, I saw her and my dad moving quickly. My mom was locking the front door, double-checking the deadbolt with shaking fingers. My dad was yanking cords out of the wall, unplugging the TV, the microwave, even the Wi-Fi router. It wasn't normal bedtime behavior. It was like they were preparing for a storm. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice small. They both looked up at me, and the fear in their eyes hit me like a punch to the chest. My dad stepped forward, his face grim. "Don't stay up past 10, he said, his voice tight. "No matter what you hear." I wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but something in their expression stopped me cold. Whatever was happening, it was real, and it was dangerous. I went back to my room, my parents' warning still fresh in my mind. I didn't know what was happening, but their fear had seeped into me, wrapping around my chest like invisible vines. Swallowing hard, I slid under the covers, pulling the blanket up to my chin as if it could somehow protect me. I checked the time. 9:59 p.m. 1 minute. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the room itself was holding its breath. Then I heard it. At first it was so faint I almost thought I was imagining it. A whisper, so soft, so distant, like someone murmuring from the farthest corner of the house. But then the sound grew louder, rising from my phone. It wasn't a notification chime or a ringtone. It was wrong. A high-pitched, eerie hum that sent a ripple of cold down my spine. My tablet buzzed with the same noise. So did my alarm clock. My laptop, even though it was powered off. Every screen, every speaker, every single electronic device in my room was playing it. The sound wasn't just noise, it was alive, and underneath it, something else. A voice. It was buried beneath the hum, layered so deep I could barely hear it, but it was there. Whispering. Speaking in a language I didn't understand. The words slithered through the noise, soft but insistent, like they were meant just for me. I wanted to listen. Something about it pulled at me, like a hook digging into my mind, reeling me in. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. My fingers curled against the sheets. If I focused, maybe, just maybe, I could understand what it was saying. But then my dad's warning echoed in my head. No matter what you hear, I clenched my jaw, shut my eyes, and forced myself to stay still. My body was tense, every muscle screaming at me to move, to run, to do something. But I stayed frozen, gripping the blankets like they were my last lifeline. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Silence. I didn't open my eyes right away. I lay there listening, waiting for something, anything to happen. But there was nothing. No more whispers, no more hum. The room felt normal again, but I wasn't fooled. Eventually, exhaustion won. I drifted off, my body giving in to sleep. The next morning I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window, birds chirping outside like it was just another ordinary day. My tablet was right where I left it. My phone showed no weird notifications. The world kept moving like nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night at exactly 9:50 p.m., the emergency alert returned. This is an emergency alert. At exactly 10 p.m., all electronic devices will emit the bedtime signal. You must be in bed with your eyes closed before the signal begins. Those who remain awake and aware will be taken. The same robotic voice, the same crackling static, the same uneasy feeling creeping over my skin. I watched as my parents rushed through the house, their movements identical to the night before, checking locks, closing blinds, making sure everything was unplugged. My mom's hands trembled as she turned off the lights. My dad barely spoke, his jaw tight. But tonight, something inside me was different. I wasn't as scared. I was curious. I wanted to know why. What was the bedtime signal? What would happen if I didn't close my eyes? Who or what was speaking beneath the hum? So when the clock struck 10 and the eerie hum filled my room again, I didn't shut my eyes right away. I listened. The whispering was clearer this time. The words still didn't make sense, but they sounded closer, like whoever or whatever was speaking had moved toward me. My skin prickled, my breath shallow. Then from somewhere beneath my bed, the wooden frame creaked. I stiffened. A single thought echoed in my head. I'm not alone. I held my breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. Slowly, cautiously, I turned my head just enough to see the edge of my blanket. The whispering grew louder, pressing against my ears like cold fingers. And then, a hand slid out from the darkness under my bed. Long fingers, pale, stretched skin, moving with slow, deliberate intent, reaching for me. A strangled gasp caught in my throat. My body locked up, every instinct screaming at me to run, to scream, to do something. But I couldn't. I was frozen in place, my eyes locked on the thing creeping toward me. Then, I slammed my eyes shut. Darkness. The whispering stopped. Silence swallowed the room. The air around me felt charged, like something was waiting, watching. I lay there unmoving, not even daring to breathe. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Maybe seconds, maybe hours. But eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke up, sunlight spilled through my curtains, and the world outside carried on like normal. But I knew it hadn't been a dream. My blanket was twisted, yanked toward the floor like something had grabbed it during the night. I should have told my parents. I should have never listened, but I did. And the next night I listened again. This time I did more than listen. I opened my eyes. I shouldn't have. I know I shouldn't have. But it was a cycle. An endless loop you just can't break free from. I opened my eyes, and something was staring back at me. At first I couldn't move. My breath hitched, my body frozen as my vision adjusted to the darkness. But the shadows at the foot of my bed weren't just shadows. A shape crouched there, its form barely visible except for two hollow, glowing eyes. They weren't like normal eyes, not reflections of light, not human. They were empty, endless, as if I was staring into something that shouldn't exist. Its mouth stretched too wide, far too wide. No lips, just a jagged, gaping line that seemed to curl upward in something that was almost, but not quite, a smile. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It just watched me. Then it whispered, "You're awake." Its voice wasn't loud. It wasn't a growl or a snarl. It was soft, almost amused, like it had been waiting for this moment. The signal cut off. The hum stopped. The room was silent again. The thing under my bed was gone. But I knew. It hadn't really left. It was still there, hiding in the shadows, waiting for me to slip up again. The next morning, my parents acted like nothing had happened. My mom hummed while making breakfast. My dad read the newspaper, sipping his coffee like it was any other day. They didn't notice the way my hand shook when I reached for my spoon. They didn't notice the way I flinched when my phone screen flickered for just a second, as if it was watching me through it. But then I looked outside, and I noticed something. The street was lined with missing person posters, at least 5 new faces, all kids. They stared back at me from the faded, wrinkled paper. Smiling school photos, names printed in bold. I didn't recognize them, but somehow I knew. They had heard the whispers too. They had stayed awake, and now they were gone. That night, I made a decision. I didn't go to bed. I couldn't. I needed to know what happened to the ones who were taken. So, when the emergency alert played at 9:50, I ignored it. My parents called for me to get ready, but I just sat there staring at my darkened phone screen. I didn't lay down. I didn't shut my eyes. When the clock struck 10 p.m., the hum returned. This time it was different. It wasn't just a noise, it was angry. The whispers grew louder, pressing against my skull, twisting into words I almost understood. The air in my room grew thick, suffocating. My skin prickled with something worse than fear, something ancient, something hungry. Then the power went out. Not just in my room, not just in the house. The entire street went dark. For a few terrifying seconds, there was nothing but silence. Then the first creak broke through the blackness. Something moved in my closet. The door slowly creaked open, just an inch. A long, pale arm slid out. It wasn't human, too thin, too stretched. Its fingers twitched as it reached forward, curling in invitation. "Come with us," the whisper said. I bolted. I ran out of my room, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. But the second I stepped into the hallway, I knew something was wrong. The house wasn't the same. The walls stretched higher than they should have, towering above me like I was trapped inside a nightmare. The doors, my parents' room, the bathroom, the front door, were too far away, like the hallway had doubled in length. I turned toward my parents' room, my last hope, but the door was open and there was nothing inside, just blackness. No furniture, no walls, just emptiness. The whispers closed in. I turned dash, and it was there, the thing from under my bed. Its face was inches from mine, those hollow eyes swallowing every sliver of light. I felt its breath against my skin, ice cold, reeking of something old, something dead. "You stayed awake," it whispered. Its mouth curled into that too wide smile. "Now you are ours." I tried to scream. I tried. But the sound never came. The last thing I saw was its mouth stretching wider, 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 until it swallowed everything. Then, darkness. I woke up in my bed. For a brief, flickering moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, it had all been a dream. Then I got up. I walked to the kitchen, and I realized something was wrong. The house was silent, too silent. My parents weren't there. I called out for them, but my voice barely echoed in the emptiness. Their bedroom was still there, but the bed was untouched. The lights were on, but everything felt hollow. Like a perfect set designed to look like home, but not be home. Then I stepped outside. More missing person posters covered the street, but this time, my face was on them too. The world went on. People walked past me, cars rolled by, birds chirped, the wind blew, and everything continued like I wasn't even there. Like I had never been there at all. I tried to speak to someone, to my neighbors, to a passing stranger, but no one looked at me. No one saw me. No one heard me. I was still here, but I wasn't real anymore. And tonight, when the emergency alert plays at 9:50 p.m., I'll be the one whispering under your bed.